Hello, my dear students, and a very warm welcome to all of you. I know your board exams are just around the corner, so let's get you fully prepared. Today, we're diving into one of the most interesting stories from your Vistas book, The Tiger King. It's all about pride, power, and a king who was, well, incredibly stubborn. By the end of this quick explainer, I promise you'll have all the key points you need to answer any question on this chapter. So, let's begin. Okay, let's jump right into the craziest part of this story. Imagine this. A tiny 10-day-old baby boy. But instead of just gurgling and crying, he actually starts speaking. And not just talking, but asking really smart questions about his own future. It's this one totally unbelievable moment that kicks off the entire story. So, you're probably wondering, what was this little baby so worried about? Well, see, at his birth, the royal astrologers made a big prediction. They said he would grow up to be a hero, a warrior, a champion of champions. But there was a catch. They said his death would be caused by a tiger. This one single prophecy hangs over his entire life and becomes the main problem of our story. And what do you think the baby prince did? Did he scared? Nope, not at all. This little infant, can you believe it, lets out a fierce growl and says, "Let tigers beware." This tells you everything you need to know about his personality right from the start. He's proud. He's fearless, and he's totally convinced he can control his own fate. So this is how the first part of the king's life begins. That one crazy prophecy pretty much controls every single thing he does as the Maharaja of Pratibandamapuram. The second he turned 20 and became the king, what was the first thing on his mind? That's right, the prophecy. And he became completely obsessed with proving the astrologers wrong. His goal was simple, but also completely nuts. He decided he was going to kill 100 tigers. So, after the king killed his very first tiger, he was super proud and went to show it to the state astrologer. But the astrologer gave him a very specific warning, which adds a lot of suspense to the story. He said, "You can kill 99 tigers, Your Majesty, but you have to be very, very careful with that 100th tiger." With that warning ringing in his ears, the king's obsession just got bigger and bigger. His whole time as a ruler, every decision, every law, it was all about one thing and one thing only, the great tiger hunt. But of course, it wasn't a smooth ride. He ran into two huge problems. First, a very powerful British officer visited his state and also wanted to hunt tigers, which the king absolutely refused to allow. And second, after killing 70 tigers, he literally ran out of them. Can you imagine? The tigers in his own kingdom were all gone. So how did he solve that first problem with the British officer? Oh, this part really shows his foolish pride. To make the officer's wife, the Durrasani, happy, he sent her 50 expensive diamond rings. He thought she'd pick one or two, but guess what? She kept all of them. It cost the kingdom 3 lakh rupees. But the king didn't care. He was just happy that his throne was safe and he could continue his tiger hunt. And his solution to the second problem? It was even crazier. He told his chief minister, the Diwan, to find him a princess to marry. But there was only one condition. Her state had to have a lot of tigers. So you see, his marriage was just a tool to keep his tiger-killing score going. And it worked! Every time he visited his father-in-law, he killed a few more tigers. And soon, the big moment was here. The walls of his palace were covered with the skins of 99 tigers, just one more to go. The tension was at its absolute peak. And this, my dear students, brings us to the climax of the story, the hunt for that final, fateful 100th tiger, the very one the astrologer had warned him about. The king was getting angrier and angrier because he just couldn't find that last tiger. So, to save his own skin, the poor Diwan cooked up a secret plan. He arranged for an old, very weak tiger to be brought all the way from the People's Park in Madras, and then he had it secretly let go in the forest for the king to find. So this old tiger just wanders right in front of the Maharaja. It was the easiest shot ever. The king took careful aim. He fired his gun. Bang! The tiger fell down in a heap. The king was so happy. He felt this huge sense of relief. He truly believed he had finally killed the 100th tiger and had cheated destiny. He started celebrating, left the forest, and ordered a huge parade to bring the dead tiger back to the palace. But my dear students, here's the big question for you. Is it ever really that simple? Can a person truly cheat their own fate? And here is the biggest twist in the entire story. The king, in all his pride and glory, had actually missed his shot. The bullet just flew past the tiger. The poor old tiger had simply fainted from the shock of the sound. The hunters were terrified of telling the king the truth, so they shot the tiger themselves and kept it a secret. So the king celebrated a victory that wasn't even his. And this leads us to the final and most ironic part of the story. The king thought he had won. He thought he was safe, but destiny had a very different plan. It was time for a tiny little tiger's revenge. A few days later, it was his son's birthday, and the king bought him a cheap, poorly made wooden toy tiger. While they were playing, a tiny little piece of wood, a sliver from that toy, poked his hand. The tiny wound got infected, the infection spread all over his arm, and famous surgeons were called in. And just like that, the prophecy came true. The 100th tiger, that little wooden one, was the cause of his death. The final line of the story is just a masterpiece of dark humor. After the operation, the surgeons came out and announced, the operation was successful. The Maharaja is dead. It just shows the total foolishness of it all. This great king who fought so many real tigers was ultimately defeated by a toy. Okay, everyone, I think you've understood the story perfectly now. So let's get to the most important part, how to take all this knowledge and turn it into a perfect answer that will get you full marks in your exam. Now, the most important word you need to know for this chapter is satire. Don't worry, it's a very simple idea. Satire is basically when an author makes fun of the silly behavior and pride of powerful people, just like our Tiger King, to point out their mistakes and criticize them. Now, have a look at this. This is a very typical question from your board exams. It asks how the story uses satire and something called dramatic irony to talk about the pride of rulers. Before we plan the answer, let's quickly understand dramatic irony. It's when we, the readers, know something important that a character in the story does not know. For example, we know the king missed the 100th tiger, but he has no idea. Now don't worry, this question is very easy to answer if you have a solid plan. Here is your perfect answer plan, step by step. First, in your introduction, define satire and dramatic irony, just like we discussed. Then you build your answer with these clear points. Point 1. Talk about how he completely ignored his duties to the kingdom, just to hunt tigers. That's a great example of satire. Point 2. Mention the 3 lakh rupees he spent on the rings. This shows his ego and foolishness. Point 3. Explain how his own staff only obeyed him because they were scared, which shows he wasn't a good leader. And finally, your conclusion. The ultimate dramatic irony is his death by a tiny wooden tiger. This is the author's final punchline, a satirical punishment for all his pride. And that's all there is to it. So I'll leave you with one final question to think about. In a story that's full of tigers, who was the real savaged beast? Was it one of the animals? Or was it the king himself, driven by his own foolish pride? Think about it. You are all fully prepared now. Go and give it your best in the exams. All the very best.